Welcome or welcome back to Lost in Thought. My name is Jen and today I want to look at Anglo-Saxon women warriors. Now this is a question I get asked rather a lot, usually by school children, and the question is, did girls fight? Did Anglo-Saxon women fight? Was it something that they did? Were they allowed to? And I always answer that question with a question of my own, which is, well, what do you think? And I get a absolutely range of answers, ranging from usually from a very small girl carrying a plastic sword and shield saying, of course they fought, girls can do everything but boys can. And while that's true nowadays of the 21st century, things might have been different back then. And then from the other side of the spectrum, I get, no, of course girls weren't allowed to fight. They had to stay at home, they had to cook, they had to clean, sew, weave, spin. And so today I want to sort of explore any evidence that we have for Anglo-Saxon women fighting during that period of time. So we're going to break the evidence down into three types. We're going to have illustrations, so any drawings, pictures. We're going to have any written information, and we're going to have any physical evidence, so grave evidence as well. Starting off with any illustrations. Now up on the screen, hopefully, magic of video editing, there should be some images from what is called Psychomachia, but I think it's pronounced by Prudentius. And very, very clearly see that these are women fighting. They've got swords, some of them are wearing mail, and they're really giving it their all. They're really getting into it. Surely this is enough evidence that women fought. Unfortunately not. When we actually look at the context of these images are all used to illustrate a 5th century poem called Psychomachia by Prudentius. And the poem in its essence is a story of good versus evil, vices versus virtues. And this poem was originally written in Latin, and it's been copied out in Latin. And the illustrations that illuminate this manuscript, or these manuscripts, these images are taken from, they are just illustrating this poem, this story basically. It's wrath fighting patience, or faith fighting the worship of the old gods. And because this poem was written in Latin, all of the abstract concepts of these things, so anger, wrath, pride, they are all in Latin written in the feminine gender. And so when these women are fighting, they are a personification of these feelings, of these thoughts. So unfortunately, although they are absolutely lovely, gorgeous illustrations, we can't take them at face value. They need to be put into context of this poem and the meaning behind it. As far as written sources, we have a little bit more. A chap called Procopius wrote about a English princess known as the Island Girl. However, it's not 100% whether he was actually referring to England itself, as it could be another island. He was rather vague about this. She is jilted by her would-be suitor, and she forms an army and chases him down. Again, I'd take that with a grain of salt. There is Queen Athelberg, and in the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle in 722 it is written that she destroyed Taunton. Again, we don't know whether she actually led the army herself or she merely commanded an army to go and do that for her. Majorly, there is Queen or Lady Athelflaed, the daughter of King Alfred, and she is most known for building lots of burhs, fortified towns around England, and fighting back the Vikings. Again, it is not known whether she actually fought herself or whether she commanded the army to do that for her. But it is worth noting that in that period, in that time, it was very important for a leader to actually lead from the front. They had to be seen, they had to be in battle, and they had to lead their troops as if they were one of them as well. It's worth thinking about. We also have Saxo Grammaticus, who, around about the year 1200 AD, writes, "There were once women in Denmark who dressed themselves to look like men and spent almost every minute cultivating soldiers' skills." And again, he's writing post Anglo-Saxon times, and he's writing about the past. He could be trying to barbarize the past people, the pagan people that he knows of. By this time, Denmark is fully Christian, and he wants the people of past Denmark to look more savage than they really were. Lastly, we've got this physical evidence. We've got the pre-Christian Anglo-Saxon graves where people are buried with grave goods. They're buried with things like the clothes that they wore. They're buried with brooches. They're buried, usually women are buried with spindle whorls for drop spinning. Men tend to be buried with things like spears, sometimes shields. And there is about 6 or 7 female sexed graves where the women contained are buried in a male fashion. So they are buried with spears, they are buried with saxes, so big knives, they are buried with things like shields. Not all of them are identical, not all of them are the same, so 1 or 2 of them have got spears, a couple of them have got shields. And does this mean that these women, these were the ones that did fight? They are buried as a man would be. They are not buried with the typical things that we see with women of the time. They don't have any feminine accoutrements. They don't have what are usually the brooches to fasten a dress. They don't have drop spindle whorls. The burial practices are only telling us about the people that bury the people. They don't tell us about the people themselves. They tell us what people see other people as. It's really easy for us modern people to say, that person's buried with a sword, it must mean that they were a great warrior. However, there is an example of a toddler, I believe they're about 3 years old, 3 or 4 years old, and they are also buried with a sword in the north of England. I believe it's a Viking grave, however. Obviously, they did not fight. It could mean something else entirely, completely. There's one grave, though, in particular, that I'd like to show you now. So the grave that I find the most interesting is from Beckford, which is in the Midlands, in the south of the Midlands in England, and it is grave A2. And it is a female buried as a male. She has a spear, a spearhead with a butt cap or a ferrule on the end of it, and a shield as well. It's a pretty plain grave as far as Anglo-Saxon graves go. The most interesting thing about it is her skull has got a lesion just above her eye, and it appears that this lesion was made with a sharp instrument, possibly a weapon. The archaeology report says it's not done by anything surgical. It looks like it has been done traumatically. It's been something that has come in, it has hit her, and that is how it has been caused. And that didn't kill her. That has also shown signs of healing as well. Did this woman get this in actual battle? We don't know. It can't tell us. She could have received it outside of battle, and because she survived this injury, she was buried as a warrior because of surviving this injury. We don't know, and I doubt that we will ever know unless we find some more evidence to either support or deny this. And this is the really frustrating thing about it. There's no solid evidence to say that women did fight. And as much as I would want to say, yes, women, they did fight, of course they fought. I would absolutely love that. I think that looking at the evidence, it is possibly mainly 100% the male men. They did do most of the bulk of the fighting, definitely. There may have been a couple of outliers here and there, a couple of women who did fight. I can't say, you can 100% say that no women ever did not fight. I think that again would also be silly. But I'm interested to hear what you might think. Please leave a comment down below. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. And thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you ever so much. Goodbye for now.